Hey everyone, welcome to Build Series in New York City. I'm Lauren Moraski from HuffPost. You know Rhea Seehorn for playing attorney Kim Wexler on the hit AMC series Better Call Saul. Well, the Breaking Bad spinoff is back for a 4th season, and we have Rhea here with us to talk all about it. But first, here's a look at the new season.
It says here you were a lawyer. What changed?
How'd the job search go?
Pretty good. Got a few leads.
In this place, they're not exactly what you call security conscious. And that's where you come in.
If our arrangement is to continue, there's a matter we need to discuss.
Do you really want to do this?
You have Gus Fring's respect. I'd want to keep that if I were you.
The guy's story changes every time he tells it.
Strictly gainful employment, and in 10 months, poof, I'm a lawyer again.
Why don't you stop running the game on me and just tell me about the job?
Step into my office.
Fair? Let's talk about fair.
I decide what he deserves.
Stubbornness and persuasiveness are 2 of my top qualities.
Please welcome Rhea Seehorn. Yes. Oh my gosh, I personally can't tell you how excited I am that this show is back for a 4th season.
Oh,
are you as excited as we are?
I am excited because I don't remember any of what we shot, so it's very exciting to see what happened.
So you're it's unfolding for you like it is for us.
It is. I mean,
yeah.
I do remember it, of course, and it was a blissfully challenging show, a big roller coaster of a season this season, but it was 5 months that ended on May 25th. So it is exciting to, you know, create this work in like your own little bubble in the deserts in New Mexico and then finally get to like have fans see it. That's fun.
And are you watching it week to week like everyone else? Or
Normally I do. And
Okay.
I don't binge. I actually like to watch things live and I like to digest for a week and then think about the next one. But because of press, I saw part of last night's and then the premiere I did get to see a week in advance, but so I've seen 1.5 of them.
Okay, what's it like watching yourself after you've spent all that time?
Horrible.
Horrible.
I don't recommend it. But it's so hard to not think of the things you could have done differently. But I did get to see the scene that I did with Patrick Fabian, which it's in that trailer, the fair. Let's talk about fair. Yeah. And he was so great. Yeah. It's really easy to enjoy my scene partners' work.
Yeah.
And to see. For instance, that episode, which aired last night, Michelle McLaren directed it, and Tom Schnauz wrote it. And I like seeing the fruits of their work as well. I can see how my performance, how we worked on it together to negotiate what Kim's falling apart would look like.
Right.
That was a lot of fun.
You've had some great scenes this season so far. I like the scene with telling off your former boss. Yes, there's so many good scenes.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, and in a way, I guess to catch everyone up, season 4 really picks up off where season 3 left off, right?
Yes,
I mean,
right
really
after
does.
it left off. Hector Salamanca he's just getting into the ambulance after Nacho switched the pills. Only Gus Fring saw it. And Kim is still in her cast, and I'm still wearing the cast, which is a real cast, by the way. It's plaster put on by paramedics every morning,
Really?
and it does not come off.
Wow.
It is sawed off at the end of the day.
Whoa, that's incredible. Well, that's why it looks so realistic. Yeah.
Yes, and they did test some other ones to see would a fiberglass one where you can hide clips be okay. And once you have something, guys, that's like past a 90-degree angle, you can't slip it off. You'd have to be pulling it off this way, and we tested ones, and they look too clunky or too big or too shiny. Mm-hmm. So it's real. Yeah. But what was cool about that is I very much understood what Kim's frustration would be with needing help constantly.
Right. She needs help, but I feel like she's helping out Jimmy quite a bit at the start of the season.
And we're picking up with Chuck's funeral, basically, and Jimmy and Kim and everyone else finding out, and Hamlin is very affected as well. Finding out Chuck has died and exactly how he died, which was horrific. And dealing with the aftermath of that pretty much goes throughout the whole season. This very slippery, complex subject of grief, and whether people go inward or outward, and dealing with it, being a grief support person. Kim's trying to be a rock while she's still suffering from last season's beginnings of her starting to fray as far as her guilty conscience, and not only about Chuck, but about Mesa Verde. and the car accident and not being satisfied with banking law and all of that.
And she's dealing with a lot of this kind of on her own in some ways, I would say.
It was interesting to me and difficult to navigate. Kim is so poker-faced and prefers to seem in control and keep stuff in so much. There was really only one person she would be vulnerable around and reached out to, and it was Jimmy. And we started to see that when she said, "Do you feel guilt about this?" Last season. And he is shutting down due to this catastrophic event now. And so, don't get me wrong, the season's also very funny. It sounds like a huge downer, but no, Bob did some of the funniest scenes I've seen him do ever. I ended up doing some comedy stuff that we got to do. There's a lot of high drama and high comedy in it this season. But yeah, she is trying. She doesn't have anybody to talk to, and so. Yeah. Part of what we're seeing with these little implosions in her is just her rattling around in her brain by herself.
Well, I'm glad that there's some comedy seeped in throughout the season, and comedy. The cast is a lot comedians, like obviously. So there are quite a few comedians. You got your start in sitcoms yourself. So.
Yes, I did theater here in New York and DC for about 12 years, and I did drama and comedy the same back and forth, but my first show I got cast in was a sitcom called I'm With Her, with Terry Polo, I guess 14 years ago, and so then I would only get called in for sitcoms.
Yeah.
And it was weird to me. I didn't know that was a thing. I just thought, well, of course I do drama, but you get pigeonholed. But then you're grateful to be pigeonholed because you're getting called at all.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I'm not going to complain about it that much. But luckily, Vince Gilligan and Peter Gould, and even maybe before you get to that step, the casting directors, Sharon Bialy, Sherry Thomas, and Russell Scott, who also cast Breaking Bad, and of course, Bryan Cranston was coming from a sitcom.
Right, yeah.
They don't see actors that way. They see actors in a much more complex, three-dimensional way, and they knew a body of my work for a decade. That's all a part of me getting the role, not just the audition.
Going back to that time, what was your audition like? Was there an actual audition for this? Yeah.
Yes. You came in and read for it, but Vince and Peter were already in Albuquerque scouting locations and couldn't be in the room. They were in the room later as you made it to screen tests and stuff with Bob, but it started with Sharon and Sherry and Russell. And they had scenes, but they were fake scenes because there's such a problem with sides, which are the portions of the script you read for an audition. They kept getting leaked, and they do in a lot of shows. So these days, we have to sign non-disclosure agreements to even audition often.
Yeah.
And then sometimes they'll give you scenes that aren't actually contained in the final script in case those get leaked. But you have to imagine, let's say 100 people are going in for the role, and some of them took their sides, and some of them, and some of them left them in the car.
Yeah.
Some of them put them in the trash, at Ralph's supermarket or whatever. So they are trying to control where this information's going. So, yes, they were fake sides, but they were actually entirely fake characters as well. My first one was a policewoman.
Wow.
It was who was doing like a bust on her. She thinks it's just a criminal in an alley, but it turns out to be her sister who's on drugs and a prostitute.
Huh.
And then the second audition was like a small town, a woman revisiting her small town crush who still lives there. But they were character traits they intended to graft onto Kim.
Got it. And Kim became who she is. And she's changed quite a bit since season 1.
Yes.
I mean, I feel like she's evolved as a character on the show.
Yes, very much so. And it doesn't seem like that's odd now watching television, but it was groundbreaking, and it still is to some degree, to do long-form character arcs. Because a lot of times when you watch a show, networks used to believe that it makes the audience very uncomfortable and nervous if their characters ever change themselves. Their circumstances change, but their character assets remain the same. And so Vince and Peter write these characters that they can grow. You can find out new things about them, and they also are changed by their circumstances. So I find her significantly different now. And by the end of the season, it's wildly different than where you met her.
Well, yeah, because we're also dealing with the change of Jimmy to Saul this season. I feel like that's really going to play out as the season rolls on.
Gus is becoming Gus, and Mike is becoming Mike. Those are sometimes more incremental and nuanced changes versus the Jimmy to Saul obviously is a huge shift.
Yeah, I mean, what's it like knowing morally kind of where he's going to be, what he's going to become, having, obviously know what he becomes with Breaking Bad,
right.
of course. So
well, it's interesting because in this, I think about it as an actor, but I have to make sure I leave it at the door when I play scenes because Kim did not see Breaking Bad.
Right.
So she, like, when people say, when he didn't even call, and when he was out all night, she's not thinking like, oh my God. And I was like, she's definitely not thinking, I bet he ordered a hit on somebody. Yeah. She did not see Saul Goodman, So I have to take things as they come for Kim. And Kim is also extremely independent. So there's areas where Ray, might ask my fiance, what are you doing? But she's just she's very compartmentalizing. And there's also the element of the Kim we met in the premiere of season 1 of Better Call Saul. If she met Saul Goodman of Breaking Bad, I couldn't understand it at all.
Right.
But they're not immovable objects. As he changes, she changes. And I'm not necessarily saying she would accept behavior that happens in Breaking Bad. I don't know. I just know that I don't know who she'll be when she meets him where he's at.
Yeah.
They're constantly shifting. It's an interesting question and what the moral dilemma will be. And you see both of their characters this season start to have somewhat of secret lives. Mm-hmm. And it's comedic at times and then it's tragic at times because you want to say, if you guys would just tell each other what's going on,
maybe it would work out.
You might actually not go down the roads you're going down.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's a chemistry that's developing between the two of them that we're seeing unfold this season
I hope so.
as well. Yeah, okay.
But it was weird for Bob and I have talked to a couple of press outlets saying it was very strange that what seemed the most dangerous for these two characters was we have scenes this season where they grew up and had very honest, intimate conversations, and they're very quiet. And they're very still, which also is odd on TV. And they felt weighted. They felt dangerous. Because if these two people are going to drop all their armor, life could change dramatically. Yeah. But the whole time the audience is sitting there thinking, but it won't. You can't get out of this. Yeah. So it's a tightrope.
And that's the thing. We also know that forward-facing, because we're seeing the flashback scenes, that somehow Kim's not around,
right?
But you don't know how or why at this point, do you?
I don't. And the creators and the showrunners and all of our writers, they have not solidified it. I think they have some ideas of things they might like to do, try, or see that maybe they aren't letting me know about because they don't want me to hang my hat on. Right. Oh, she definitely is in the back room of Cinnabon. Like, they don't want me to presume that or presume she's killed in a horrible car crash because what if they write around that? And they are two of the only showrunners that do not write a fixed Bible, which is it's an outlining of not just one season, but sometimes networks demand it for an entire series.
Wow.
Like the whole thing because they want to know, like, where will a big dramatic death happen, and then where will this giant stunt casting thing happen, and then that. They don't want to be painted into a corner in that fashion, so they are being honest, I believe, when they tell me they're not entirely sure, and they also like character to dictate plot more than plot dictating character. So it depends on what Kim and Jimmy are doing at that time when it comes up, or what Howard Hamlin's doing. And so I don't know the answer, but I have a lot of fun listening to fans' guesses. Yeah. And their theories.
There are so many
there's
theories.
A lot of theories.
What's been one of the ones that stands out to you in terms of theories?
There's Kim's working in the mall at Cinnabon. Okay. That's a fun one.
Okay,
that she packed his weird little lunch that he's eating on the bench. She's upstairs. I don't know if you remember the first Gene scene. Is it the second Gene? Maybe it's the second Gene. Flash forward in season 1, but he's at home. He's not at Cinnabon, and he's drinking, and he's watching his own commercials.
Yes.
There's some people that thought I was there. There's some people that thought I was the person he saw at the window. And then if you go to Breaking Bad years, there's people, of course, that think I'm dead. Mm-hmm. There's people that think I'm in jail. That my backstory led me to eventually also go to my darker side, and I end up in jail. There's other people thinking I exist, but he doesn't tell anyone about me because he's protecting me.
Huh. All these seem pretty.
They're all feasible,
possible,
which
right?
is strange.
Yeah.
Many used to be ludicrous, and now they're feasible. And then Patrick Fabian and I, who plays Howard Hamlin, we joke that the two of us run off and start a mega church just because when we're standing next to each other, we look like blonde, blue-eyed, like out of control, Pat Robertson people. So we have a good laugh about that. No shade to Pat Robertson. I'm sure he's lovely.
Right, but no, there is that. I can see that.
We're both in our navy blue suits and it's
power suits. If Kim were going to have her own spin-off series, how would you imagine her to be?
I don't know, and there's fans that talk about that too. Yeah, it's interesting. I love thinking about her backstory as well as her forward trajectory. So, so that part of that I find very interesting. I mean, the first time they had me do a job interview when Schweikert and Coakley tried to steal her away, I believe it's season 2. And I get the script from Gordon Smith, and it says that I'm asked, so tell us about yourself, where are you from? And she won't answer. I was like, that's extremely weird behavior in a job interview. Totally. She says small town on the Kansas-Nebraska border, but won't answer the city. And then they're asking why she came to New Mexico, also won't answer. Just says I wanted more. I didn't want to end up at a what's the grocery store? Anybody follow the small trivia stuff? I can't think of the name of it. It's a small Hinky Dinky.
Oh yeah, okay.
She didn't want to end up cashiering there, so they're very elusive answers all the time.
Right. So her backstory could be anything, really, or her forward story could be anything.
And she definitely seems to know how to run a con.
Yep.
She's reluctant, but knows what she's doing once she's doing it. And I think she knows who Jimmy is. She doesn't know who Jimmy's going to become, but she knows what he came from, and she has a strange comfort level / attraction to it. And also anybody that is that intent and obsessive about wanting to get a foothold into the middle class and make a life for themselves, and I can't backslide, I can't, gripping it till you get in a car crash, doing anything you can to get ahead, the doc review, all those scenes, to me, seems like someone who you must be wanting to get away from something.
Right.
If you're terrified to let go and just backslide. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or it's this season specifically, I was telling Peter one day, I said, I feel like she is metaphorically, not literally, an ex-addict who can't stop hanging out with people who still use.
Yeah.
Because there's an element of that with the relationship with Jimmy that's almost like someone who's sober who still hangs out with alcoholics, and it's very dangerous to be doing that.
Yeah.
But he can't help himself, and so you can love someone in spite of the fact that they keep getting drawn back to their disease. That just got very heavy.
No, that's so deep. But I do see the appeal of Jimmy. I mean, as you're watching it, I could see why she likes him.
I totally do.
Mean, I'm watching it, I'm like...
And when people used to say they didn't quite understand why those two were together, and I rarely hear it now.
Yeah.
Because I think they see what Kim sees in Jimmy now, and I think they see what Jimmy sees in Kim. And that's not just to say, like, well, she's a good person, of course, like, he would like her. I think it's more they have a trust with each other and an ability to put down the armor and be honest with each other. And they're both outsiders trying to fit in constantly. And I think they have a lot more alike now. We'll see what happens as we go towards Breaking Bad, but they have more alike than not alike, I think, often.
Yeah, we're heading towards Breaking Bad. I mean, I understand there's a couple of things you can talk about. There is like a potential...
Everything.
Yeah, she can talk about, but potentially there's a character that was mentioned early in Breaking Bad that we never saw.
Yes, I can say that.
You could talk about that, right?
We see Lalo. We meet Lalo, and he's a new character to the show, but only like to see him. He's mentioned in Breaking Bad when it's Saul's first scene, Saul Goodman's first scene, and he says, "Did Ignacio put you up to this?" And then he blames Lalo, I guess, or I have it reversed. I might have it reversed. My apologies. But people spent Breaking Bad years, diehard fans, saying, "Who is that? Who is this person that did this setup that was involved with Saul?" And you meet him, and it's great.
So so we're gonna actually
he's fantastic, and we see some other characers that we've
familiar
seen
faces
before.
potentially.
We see some familiar faces and some familiar places, and seeing where things started or came from. I was telling someone the other day that doing the interviews about what actually happens in the show. Does anybody here play the game Taboo? Have you ever played
Anybody?
it?
We got some Taboo
it's a
fans? We got some
guessing
Taboo
game?
fans,
Okay.
yeah.
I love that somebody wooed Taboo because I love Taboo. Like, I am a board game freak. But so if you haven't, you're guessing words that your partner has, but you have a card, and they're easy. They're like Apple. But you have a card that has 5 things you can't say that are like red, fruit, doctor, so you can't say keeps the doctor away. Then there'd probably be like 2 others that you hadn't thought of. And then you have to try to get them, you have to describe Apple without saying any of that. And that's what it's like talking about the seasons, because we look like we can't even form sentences. Because every word you bump up against is something that's on my card. So it's hard. But there's some really fun Breaking Bad surprises. There's also a ratcheting up of both the drama and the comedy. Yes. And really interesting, scary, funny, strange stuff on the cartel side. Jimmy's evolution towards Saul is much more pronounced and odd. It came in odd shifts. I don't know if anybody saw last night's show, but the shift to want to win a sale to hating winning and hating the person he duped and sort of being without conscience about it was a dark thing. And there's some moments like that are very funny and then very, very dark in his progression. And then Kim, you start to see that Kim's poker face is very much in armor, holding in a lot of stuff.
Wow. Well, I can't wait for that. Let's just talk about your ponytail, because let's
talk about it.
Let's talk about the ponytail. If you watch Better Call Saul, rather, then you see the ponytail quite a bit, and there's a lot of talk about your ponytail and what it stands for. Did you know that this was going to?
I didn't know it was going to be a thing.
A thing, yeah.
Trish Almeida developed that design and designed that hair, and she's still the hair artist queen over there. And she's also doing, I don't know if you've noticed, this fabulous forward and backward of Saul's hairline are all individual wigs and pieces that Trish Almeida is. They're fantastic. She's so great. But the ponytail started as the costume discussion as well of working women that I grew up with, and Jennifer Bryan, the costume designer. And something that was important to a lot of us was, if we're going to show somebody who desperately wants to get a foothold into the middle class, who probably didn't come from much, and is just trying to maintain in a 2002 law office that's full of mostly white men and trying to find her way in there, what would she be doing? And I said, well, and Jennifer Bryan said the same thing. She can't have the money. You can't be wearing Gucci suits like you sometimes see in a movie or a TV show. So the clothes were mismatched, and I'm frequently wearing the same jacket with 3 different skirts. She never changes jewelry. Yeah. The women I grew up with they didn't change their purses or their hairstyles. It was very clean, no nonsense. But we wanted it to also be that she's not afraid to be feminine. She's totally happy to be a woman. Yeah. But she's not going to lead with sexuality. It's work first, and she wants to be appreciated for that. So that's why it's off the face, and it's clean and out of the way. And then that fell apart when I had to start doing my hair with one hand. Yeah. So you'll see it devolving the ponytail this season as well, because they wanted realistically it to look like. And we had huge discussions about how much in the funeral scene in episode 1 this season, it's perfection again. Yeah. Supposedly because she went to a salon. But for the rest of the season, it's low barrettes. It's very sloppy low ponytails, because we were trying to figure out, would Jimmy be able to help? Yeah. And we all agreed not a lot. I don't think he does hair very well. And there was lots of stuff. The clothing shifted dramatically because because she wouldn't be able to put certain things on, and in real life I couldn't put certain things on. Right. But yeah, the ponytail also, it got more coiled the more high-strung she was, and then started to fall apart. Yeah, it's significant. It has a whole through line by itself. It really is. Okay, so before we get to audience questions, what's next on the horizon for you? I understand you co-directed a short film or something recently. I did. Yeah. I co-directed my first film that I wrote, a short, last year, and that's running the festival circuit now, called How Not to Buy a Couch, and starring Tina Parker, who plays Francesca in Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad. And then this year, I solo directed for the first time a short written by Dessa Larkin-Boutte, who was on Better Call Saul as well. Sorry, behind the scenes, not on camera. And And then I just shot 2 indie features that I'm not allowed to announce yet, but I didn't shoot them, so I'm in them.
Okay.
But they're
okay.
fantastic.
All right. So maybe we'll have to talk.
Really fun indie stuff, and I'll announce those as soon as I can.
All right. Well, we look forward to that. Well, let's get to some audience questions.
Okay.
All right. Who's first? Right here.
Hi.
So from the moment that you decided, like, I want to be an actress, up until now, what has that journey been like for you, and what has given you the drive to get from where you started to where you currently are?
Are you an actor?
Yes.
I still I've been doing it. I was trying to figure it out the other day. 22 years, if I count the first time I was paid for it, but I was doing some academic stuff before that. But I didn't start until later. I started getting hired professionally while I was in college, but I didn't act in high school or anything growing up. I wanted to, but by the time I got to college, I was chubbier with crew-cut jet black hair and really hated ingenue roles and didn't know anyone in the business or anyone in entertainment. And so I thought it was way beyond my reach, but I was obsessed with storytelling and still am. The Moth and Radio Hour stuff and Invisibia, Stranger Than Fiction. So I kept trying to figure out, and I was going to school for painting, and I kept trying to figure out, well, the storytelling part of me where you become someone else and take people on a journey, how can I figure that out too? Started taking acting classes and fell in love with it and thought, you know what, I think there's a place for me in theater. Probably not TV and movies. Those are beautiful people that already know people, and that's a closed off castle in the sky. And so I did theater for 12 years, starting off by just constantly asking yourself, do you love the work? Put the work first. So I had many day jobs to support volunteering to do stage directions for any theater. And I got my agent here. She's backstage. She's still my same agent, the first agent I ever had, by volunteering to read stage directions for Playwrights Horizons for any new plays in the basement for free. And then eventually they let me read a part, and she happened to be there. But I wasn't paid for any of that. And I bring that up because that is how I sustain myself now. And I know people, when they see me, by the time I'm doing this, it's because I'm on a show. But there were 25 no's about other shows that you're not going to hear about. And you sustain yourself by doing the exact same thing I did from the beginning, which is make characters and invest in stories that I would do it for free for you guys out on that curb, so that when the time comes that if somebody wants to pay me for it and surround me with some of the best people I've ever worked with and put me on a network that supports and encourages me, it is fantastic. And I never lose the gratitude for it, but it's icing on the cake. I would play Kim Wexler on the curb, and I loved it from my very first audition, and just keep doing that. Make the work something that you would do alone in your living room or on a stage or on camera, and then no one can take that part away from you. They just can't.
Thanks for that question and great advice. All right, who's next?
I'm next.
Hi.
How you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing great. I want to ask you, as far as like being an actress, what other actresses do you like look up to and get your wisdom and knowledge from?
Tons.
Maybe ask for advice.
Tons. I wish I could say it's all personal advice because we all hang out together, but we don't. So I'll just tell you the people that I'm obsessed with their work: Allison Janney, Laurie Metcalf, Edie Falco, Frances McDormand, Melanie Linsky, Clea Duvall, Anna Gunn, Jesse Ennis, young, amazing actor that was on our show for a couple seasons, Ann Cusack. I could go on and on. Connie Britton. Is it Britton or Britton? Does anybody know?
I think it's Britain.
We should call her.
Yes.
Who else? I could go on and on and on. Naomi Jacobson, a theater person. Nancy Robinette, theater. Holly Twyford, theater. Ann Dowd. Should I just keep naming women? Because I love them all.
You named quite a few amazing ones. That is for sure. Thank you for that. And thanks for that question. I think we have time for one more question. Who's next?
Hi. So Better Call Saul is like a show known for mixing comedy and drama.
Right.
Just wondering if you have a different process for when you're going into maybe a comedic scene versus a dramatic scene. Mm-hmm. How do you prepare?
You know, the thing is, like, because I ask people that all the time about tone shift. And when you get a project that does shift tones. I'm often the actor that's itching to ask, like, can you talk to me about the tone of this scene? And you get an answer, which is true from people a lot, and this is technically true as an actor. You're trained, and you can ask him too, because he's an actor, that there should be comedy and drama and comedy anyway. So when you're playing a comedy, it's funny because it's real to the people playing it. That's what's funny. They shouldn't be playing it's a joke. And every now and then you'll see comedy where, and I'm not talking about the more mockumentary stuff like The Office, but regular format comedic shows, when you see a character who the actor seems to know that they're funny and charming, it's usually very off-putting. Because we're supposed to laugh. They're not supposed to think they're so amazing. But so they usually tell you, like, well, you just don't worry about that, but you do have to. So I just usually look at the scene and ask myself, okay, play what's real no matter what. And then as an actor, if I understand that this is in a comedic land, I'm going to start talking to my director about what's the ceiling on how emotional one can be then. Because you could say play it real, but if it's a comedy, you cannot be crying to the point where somebody's worried about you. You know what I mean? So I feel like there's ceilings on, and I know somebody, if they see this, they're going to, somebody who's trained better than I is going to write in and say that is not how you explain it. But I think you do have to be aware as an actor when you're in a comedy. I had a scene one time where the person was not aware in a different production, and they just played the most soul-bearing parts of it, which should be there, but we also had to understand that, and that was on stage. We also had to understand that, like, we were in a comedy, you know. So that's I try to look at the tone and be aware for the extremes that we can go to.
Great. Thanks for that question. And thank you so much for spending the afternoon with us. This has been so great.
Thanks for having me.
Better Call Saul. It airs Monday nights on AMC. Give it up one more time. Rhea Seehorn, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Thank you. Thanks for coming.